Today's video brings you 5 disturbing tales from the ocean. There's a mixture of horrifying crimes, hopeless disasters, as well as miraculous survival. There are 5 cases that are brand new to the channel, as well as 2 bonus cases from deep in the dark case archive. Thank you all. I honestly appreciate you, and it means a lot how many of you are wishing me well as encouraging me to get out in nature and to make sure that I'm being kind to myself. However, it's now time to dive deep into the video. Love ya. On November 17, 2012, Salvadoran fisherman Jose Salvador Alvarenga left the coast of Mexico for what should have been a 30-hour fishing trip. His usual partner was unavailable, so he took 24-year-old Ezequiel Cordoba instead, a young man that he barely knew. Their 7-meter open boat carried a single outboard motor, fishing gear, fuel, water, and an icebox. Within a day, a powerful storm changed everything. For 5 days, the boat was battered by heavy seas. The motor failed, the GPS stopped working, and their radio battery died shortly after Alvarenga managed to contact his employer and ask for help. They were forced to throw almost 500 kilograms of freshly caught fish overboard to stop the boat becoming dangerously unstable. With no sails, no oars, and no anchor, they were now drifting into the Pacific, with almost no control over where they were going. A search was launched from Mexico, but poor weather and visibility forced it to end after 2 days. Horrifyingly, this meant that Alvarenga and Cordoba were totally on their own. Survival became completely improvised. Alvarenga caught fish with his bare hands and grabbed turtles, seabirds, and anything else they could safely eat. They collected rainwater whenever possible and scavenged plastic bottles and food debris floating past the boat. During the driest periods, they drank turtle blood and even their own urine, although that only worsened their dehydration. Weeks became months. Cordoba eventually became sick after repeatedly eating raw food and began refusing to eat altogether. Alvarenga tried to persuade him to continue, offering him small pieces of fish and turtle, but his condition deteriorated. Before dying, Cordoba asked Alvarenga to find his mother if he ever made it home. And so, after Cordoba passed away, Alvarenga was now completely on his own. For 6 days, he kept his companion's body aboard the boat and spoke to him as though he was still alive. When Alvarenga realized what he was doing, he released Cordoba into the ocean. From then on, he had no human contact at all. He survived by creating routines. He counted lunar cycles to measure time, talked aloud to imaginary friends and family members, and searched the horizon constantly for ships. He later said he saw numerous container vessels, but none noticed the tiny fishing boat. Then, after 438 days adrift, Alvarenga saw land. On January 30th, 2014, after traveling thousands of miles across the Pacific, he reached a tiny island in the Marshall Islands. He jumped from the boat and struggled through the water to shore, barely able to walk. 2 local residents found him exhausted, heavily bearded, and speaking Spanish they could not understand. He was eventually taken for medical treatment, suffering from dehydration, anemia, swollen limbs, and the effects of a prolonged raw food diet. His story initially sounded almost impossible, but investigators confirmed that the boat he arrived in matched the one reported missing from Mexico. Ocean current modeling supported the route, and witnesses confirmed the original search. What began as a routine fishing trip had turned into 438 days alone on the Pacific, making Alvarenga one of the longest surviving castaways ever recorded. On the evening of March 7, 2021, 41-year-old British woman Sam Heslop was seen leaving a bar on the island of St. John in the US Virgin Islands with her American boyfriend Ryan Bain. He was a boat captain. CCTV, later released by police, shows the couple holding hands as they walk down a wooden dock, climb into a dinghy, and then head over to Bain's 47-foot catamaran, a boat called Siren Song, which was anchored in nearby Franks Bay. It is the last confirmed footage of Sam alive. Sam, originally from Southampton, had previously worked as a flight attendant before leaving the UK to sail across the Atlantic with friends. She met Bain in 2020, and by early 2021 she was living aboard Siren Song and working as a chef for luxury charters. March 7th had been the completion of her first charter. According to Bain, the couple returned to the yacht, went to sleep, and he later woke after hearing the vessel's anchor alarm. By around 2:30 a.m., he said Sam was gone. Bain took the dinghy ashore and contacted police, giving a brief statement at approximately 2:44 a.m. The major question came afterwards. Police said they told him to contact the US Coast Guard, but the Coast Guard did not receive his call until 11:46 that morning. Roughly 9 hours later, Bain's lawyer has said his clients believed police were going to contact them instead. Coast Guard Commander Jan League later stressed that minutes are important when somebody may be in the water, and that such a delay reduces the chances of locating them. Boats, helicopters, divers, drones and search dogs were eventually deployed, but no trace of Sam was found. Her passport, phone, wallet and money were all left aboard Siren Song. Friends described her as organised, level-headed and a strong swimmer, and questioned why she would voluntarily enter the water alone during the night. The investigation produced further complications. Although the Coast Guard conducted a safety inspection, Bain, acting on legal advice, invoked his constitutional rights and did not permit a full forensic examination of the yacht. He also declined formal police questioning. He has never been charged with any offence connected to Sam's disappearance, and his lawyer maintains that he had nothing to do with it. Years later, newly examined CCTV created another discrepancy. Bain had previously estimated that the couple returned to Siren Song at around 10 p.m, but the timestamp shows them leaving the dock at 8:45. The journey to the yacht should have taken only minutes, leaving roughly an hour in the evening that investigators say remains unexplained. Bain's lawyer argues this was simply an inaccurate time estimate, made during a stressful situation. Sam's family have also questioned why the yacht was never forensically searched before it was later put up for sale. Police have described Bain as the only person of interest, while making clear there is no evidence establishing what happened to Sam. More than 4 years later, the case remains a missing person investigation. There is no confirmed evidence that Sam fell overboard, left the yacht voluntarily, or met with foul play. What is known is that she boarded a dinghy with Ryan Bain that night, reached the area where Siren Song was anchored, and then disappeared without leaving behind the belongings she would normally need to go anywhere. When 34-year-old Debbie Griggs disappeared from her home in Kent on May 5, 1999, her husband Andrew told police that she had stormed out. Debbie was 4.5 months pregnant and already had 3 young sons, and the idea that she had simply abandoned them immediately troubled the people who knew her best. Her friends described her as a devoted mother who would never willingly disappear from her children's lives. Andrew quickly began telling neighbours and police that Debbie had been struggling with depression and had not been taking medication. But Debbie's own diary challenged that picture, and her doctor later said she had shown no signs of depression in the weeks before she vanished. Her car was eventually found around a mile from the family home, and a small smear of her red DNA was discovered in the boot. Within weeks, the investigation shifted from a missing person inquiry towards the possibility that Debbie had lost her life. Andrew soon became the central suspect. Investigators learned that he was a keen sailor, that he was from a fishing family, and that he knew the Kent coastline extremely well. For years, one theory seemed particularly difficult to escape: that Debbie had been taken out to sea and disposed of somewhere along the coast, leaving investigators with almost no realistic chance of recovering her. That theory became even more convincing when Andrew was finally prosecuted in 2019. The court heard that Debbie believed he was involved in an inappropriate relationship with a 15-year-old girl, and that a divorce could have divided their family business. Prosecutors argued that Andrew had both personal and financial reasons to want Debbie gone. He denied murdering her and continued insisting that she had walked away. The jury rejected his account. Andrew Griggs was convicted of Debbie's murder and sentenced to life imprisonment with a minimum term of 20 years. At sentencing, even the judge suggested that Andrew had probably used his knowledge of the coast to dispose of Debbie at sea, noting that he knew those waters like the back of his hand. And at that point, after more than 20 years without a body, it seemed like Debbie might never be found. And, sorry guys, but I have led you down the garden path with this one, because we all thought Debbie was at sea. She wasn't. In 2022, police received a tip-off directing them to a property in St Leonard's, Dorset, the place where Andrew had moved after the original investigation. Officers excavated the back garden. There they found human remains. Fragments of teeth were recovered, and they were used to finally identify the person buried there as Debbie Griggs. After more than 2 decades of speculation about boats, coastlines, and an unrecoverable body somewhere beneath the sea, Debbie had actually been buried on land, in the garden of a house connected directly to the man, already convicted of her murder. The discovery did not change Andrew's conviction. It did something far more important for Debbie's family. After 23 years, they finally knew where she was. And now, in some ways, they finally got to say their goodbyes. In the early hours of November 25th, 2024, passengers aboard the Sea Story were asleep as the dive boat travelled through the Red Sea off Egypt. The 4-deck vessel was carrying dozens of tourists, crew and dive guides on a multi-day diving trip when, sometime between 2 and 3 a.m., it suddenly rolled hard onto its side. Some said the sea had been rough, but not extraordinary. What concerned them more was how unstable the boat appeared. Heavy furniture had been sliding across the upper deck. Belongings were moving around inside cabins, and one of the small inflatable boats had even fallen overboard earlier that night. When the vessel finally overturned, everything inside shifted 90 degrees. Cabin doors were suddenly above or below passengers, rather than beside them. Furniture and luggage blocked exits. The engines stopped, the lights went out, and seawater began entering the lower levels. Those who managed to reach the upper deck had little time. The Sea Story was sinking quickly, forcing passengers to jump into the water. Some later discovered that the emergency lights on their life jackets did not work. When survivors eventually reached the life rafts, they also found that food and water they remembered being promised during the safety briefing were not there. But several people never escaped the vessel at all. Belgian passenger Luciana Galetta and her partner Christophe Lemons became trapped inside the overturned hull. After attempting to escape through a flooding corridor, they found an air pocket near the rear of the vessel and climbed onto fuel tanks above the water. A dive guide later joined them. The 3 remained there in complete darkness for approximately 35 hours. They had no communication with rescuers and no way of knowing whether anyone even realized they were still alive. Luciana later said that eventually she stopped expecting to be saved and began thinking about how she would prefer her life to end. Outside, military vessels, aircraft and civilian rescuers were searching the area. 28 people were recovered alive on the first day, but the people trapped inside the hull remained unreachable. Eventually, a local diving instructor entered the submerged wreck, searching for survivors. A light appeared inside the darkness, where Luciana, Christophe and the dive guide had been waiting. The dive guide was taken out first. Equipment problems caused another delay before the diver returned for Luciana and Christophe and guided them through the flooded interior to safety. 5 people were ultimately recovered alive from air pockets inside the wreck. 4 others were found deceased, while 7 remained missing and were later officially declared dead. Egyptian authorities initially said the Sea Story had been struck by a huge wave, but an oceanographer who examined weather data said waves in the area were probably closer to 5 feet. The sinking also raised serious questions about the vessel's safety and the response that followed. Survivors reported faulty emergency equipment, unsecured furniture, and delays in rescue, while the official explanation involving a massive wave was challenged by those who had actually been in the water. On August 12, 2000, the Russian nuclear submarine Kursk was taking part in the country's largest naval exercise in more than a decade. The vessel carried 118 men and was operating in the Barents Sea when, shortly before midday, a violent explosion ripped through its forward torpedo compartment. Just over 2 minutes later, a second explosion followed, around 250 times more powerful than the first. The second blast tore through several compartments and opened the hull to the sea. The submarine dropped to the seabed, coming to rest at a depth of around 108 meters. Most of the crew were likely lost almost immediately, but not everyone. 23 men from the rear section survived the initial explosions and gathered inside the 9th compartment, where they waited in darkness for rescue. One officer managed to write notes documenting their situation. In the first, written less than 2 hours after the second explosion, he recorded that 23 men had gathered together and that conditions were deteriorating. A later note, written in darkness, estimated their chances of survival at only 10 to 20%. Above them, the rescue response was already going badly. Nearby vessels had detected the explosions, but initially assumed they were part of the military exercise. When Kursk later failed to make scheduled contact, concern grew slowly. More than 6 hours passed before a serious search and rescue effort began, and it took more than 16 hours to locate the submarine on the seabed. Russian rescue vehicles repeatedly tried to connect to the escape hatch, but failed. Bad weather, equipment problems, poor visibility, and difficulties creating a secure seal cost more time. Foreign governments offered specialist assistance, including Britain and Norway, but Russia initially refused. 5 days after the disaster, foreign help was finally accepted. By the time Norwegian divers opened the rear escape hatch, there was no possibility of finding anyone alive. Investigators later concluded that the first explosion had probably been caused by a leak inside a practice torpedo. Highly concentrated hydrogen peroxide escaped from the weapon and reacted violently inside the tube. The resulting fire then triggered the much larger second explosion, detonating several other torpedoes. The 23 survivors in the rear compartment appear to have lived for several hours after the submarine reached the seabed. As their oxygen supply deteriorated, they attempted to use chemical cartridges designed to generate more breathable air. Investigators believe one cartridge fell into oily seawater, causing a flash fire that consumed much of the remaining oxygen. The disaster quickly became about more than the loss of Kursk. Officials initially released misleading information, at one point suggesting communication had been established with the crew and that everyone aboard was alive. Russian authorities also promoted theories involving a collision with a foreign submarine, despite later evidence supporting an internal explosion. President Vladimir Putin was heavily criticized for remaining on holiday during the early days of the crisis and for the government's delayed acceptance of international help. In 2001, most of Kursk was raised from the seabed. The investigation that followed described serious failures in maintenance, discipline, equipment, and emergency training. All 118 men aboard lost their lives. In May of 2013, extreme storms hit an area of the Atlantic Ocean. Experiencing some of the worst conditions was an oil tanker owned by Chevron. The tanker was situated 20 miles or 32 kilometers off the coast of Nigeria in the Gulf of Guinea. The huge vessel was in need of urgent assistance. What they required was a tugboat powerful enough to stabilize and move the tanker to safer waters. The tugboat that was called upon was a vessel named Jascon 4. This vessel had a crew of 12, which included 29-year-old Harrison Okene, the ship's cook. Harrison wasn't at a high point of his life, but he was getting by. He was amongst the youngest of 13 siblings, but he acted like a helpful companion for his mother. The family lived in Warri, a city in south Nigeria. To help make ends meet, his mother would sell vegetables in the local market, and Harrison as a child was right by her side, carrying the heavy load with her. He was recognized as helpful and a problem solver, something that could later save his life. On May the 26th, Harrison Okene was 3 days away from going on leave. Although technically at work, his mind was focusing on going home. His day was just beginning and he was not yet dressed. Wearing only his boxer shorts, he walked to the kitchen and turned on the hot plates. He left them there to warm up, ready to cook breakfast for the crew. Exiting the kitchen and walking down the corridor, Harrison arrived at and then entered the restroom. This is a time many of us cherish in our working day. Peace and quiet and the guarantee of being left alone. But Harrison was met with unbelievable horror. Suddenly, his world literally got turned upside down. A freak wave hit the tugboat and in an instant, Harrison was crumpled on the ceiling of the restroom. The toilet bowl was now suspended directly above him. A few moments of confusion followed. These are Harrison's own words. "I was trying to open a door to get out when the toilet fell and hit me in the head." He said that he had just enough time to see that his head was now leaking red. But everything then plunged into total darkness. The lights failed almost instantly. The confusion and panic heightened as water began to fill his new upside-down reality. The cubicle began to fill up with freezing water and he was now trapped. This space could easily become his coffin. Harrison had to think quickly to determine his fate. Everywhere was dark. It didn't take long. 1 minute, 2 minutes, he said. That was all it took for the boat to plunge 100 feet before hitting the ocean floor. Discombobulated, Harrison grappled with the door, which now opened to the opposite side. This meant that the handle was almost impossible to find and even harder to operate. However, eventually in the darkness, the door finally swung open. Now moving himself into a corridor, he met 2 or 3 of his shipmates. They were panicked and desperately trying to open the hatch. His shipmates were unknowingly trying to escape the tugboat directly into the ocean, 100 feet down. However, as the others battled the hatch, Harrison made a life-altering decision. He said, "I did not have the patience to wait." The water rose further still and Harrison now pushed deeper into the belly of the ship. Attached to the second engineer's cabin was a bathroom. Harrison was swept in. The water levels were still rising around him, moving past his knees towards his waist. The sheer pressure of the water entering the vessel closed the door behind him. Due to the risk of pirates, the protocol on the ship was to keep the doors locked as you moved through the vessel. This played into Harrison's favor, he said. The air couldn't go out of the boat completely. Some had to be trapped inside. This pocket of air meant that Harrison could breathe, that he could survive 1 more minute at a time. He clung to a sink fixed to the wall. Doing this, he was able to hold his head close to the floor above him in a pocket of air. Total darkness enveloped Harrison, so his sense of sight was now useless. But his ears delivered him a story of horror and panic from his shipmates. He said that there were so many shouts, calling and crying. At least this meant that he wasn't alone, stranded on the ocean floor. Although able to breathe the trapped pocket of air, this solution was clearly temporary. If he wanted to live, he had to find his way out. Harrison Akene found and pulled at the door handle, but the surrounding pressure meant the door was stuck fast. The situation could barely get any worse, yet somehow it did. The handle to his only route of escape snapped off in his hand. He said, "I told myself, instead of panicking, you have to think of a way out." And that his only hope of survival was to convince himself that against all odds he was in charge of the situation. As he took a moment of respite, regaining composure, an eerie silence fell over the tugboat. Up to this point, his shipmates had been shouting, calling, screaming from other areas of the vessel. But in his words, one after another, I couldn't hear them anymore. Harrison believed that everyone else had escaped, finding a way out. The devastating reality, though, they all succumbed to the crushing power of the ocean. Now, 100 feet down, Harrison was totally alone. Enveloped in the dark, cold, merciless environment of the ocean floor. In this situation of life or death, our lone survivor's hand found a vent on the wall, and with that, a new chance at life presented itself. Breaking one piece of the vent off, he used it to pry open the handleless door. Regaining some level of freedom, he found his way into the second engineer's cabin. In the darkness, his hands felt a familiar item. Not one, but 2 life jackets were floating in front of him. Attached to these life jackets were torches. For now at least, there was some respite from the oppressive darkness. To help guide his way, he placed one torch between his teeth, and he stowed the other in its boxer shorts. Harrison knew that waiting to be rescued didn't hold out much hope. He exited the cabin back into the hallway, and then he made his way to the closed, watertight door. The corridor, however, was completely filled with water. There was no air pocket there. Now fully submerged in the freezing ocean water, he tried to open the door to potential freedom. The task, however, wasn't an easy one. His breath ran out quickly. He said, "If you got stuck in any room, you were lost. It was totally dark. I was confused. If you don't act fast, you can lose your life there." Panic set in and he quickly pulled himself back to the relative safety of the second engineer's cabin. Once more he held himself up using the sink, his head breaching the water's surface and able to breathe again. On another journey to the watertight hatch, he got lost and found himself in the mess room. There he was able to search through bags found floating in the water. Luckily he discovered a tin of sardines along with a can of cola. Harrison's ingenuity and problem solving came into play once more. Also found in the mess room were some overalls left by another crew member. Time and air was running out, but more work needed to be done on the watertight door. However, getting lost on the journey from the air bubble to the door would mean a certain demise. What was needed was a guide rope. The found overalls were the answers here. Ripping the fabric into strips and then tying them together formed a much needed answer. He said, "I could use the rope to guide myself back." And that is exactly what he did. Back and forth with single lungfuls of breath. Back and forth. But the door was stuck fast. His chance of escape was now 0. Things were getting worse by the second. On his underwater journeys to and from the stuck door, Harrison inhaled and ingested large amounts of salt water. The quantities were big enough to cause his throat to swell and his tongue to peel. Now back in the room with the air pocket, Harrison knew if he was to stay there, then he had to get out of the water. Hypothermia would soon take his life. A mixture of water damage and structural twisting of the boat under the pressure caused lifting of the wood paneling that surrounded the room. It was this wood that Harrison wrenched from the ceiling and walls, lashing them together to form a small, semi-buoyant raft. Climbing on top of the wood allowed him to sit crouched with his head in the air pocket, and for now at least, he was still alive. Harrison Akene's state of almost total isolation and sensory deprivation meant he was lost in time, trapped in a maddening state of limbo. He consumed the can of sardines, keeping his strength up before he grew too weak, and he drank the can of Coke. It spiked his throat as he swallowed. Crayfish had made their way into the room. They now nipped at his legs, his torso and his arms. Sores and wounds were easily made on his wet and delicate skin. With every breath he took, the water level rose and the air supply depleted. But now, all that was left to do was to wait. Wait to be rescued, or wait to perish. He said, "I had to keep my mind away from that. Let me just stay put," I thought. Thoughts of his life leading up to this point replayed through his mind. His family, his friends, his mother. He sang songs he learned in church, finding strength in his faith at a time when most would crumble. He said, "I tried to kill the fear in front of me, because one thing that can kill you fast is fear. That panic comes at you. It kills you before your real death comes, because the moment you start panicking, you use too much oxygen." A sound foreign to those he was now used to rang out through the boat. Although he didn't know at the time, it was a diver placing a marker buoy to warn other passing vessels of its presence. This was his chance of being saved. He struck the walls of the room, desperately hoping he would be heard and then saved. But nothing. He was alone once more. Back to the darkness. Back to the eerie quiet. Back to the total isolation. Time in the void passed again. The seconds, the minutes, the hours. Harrison said that he saw a reflection of light like a bubble. Taking a deep breath, he slid into the water, searching for the source, but he saw nothing. He returned to the surface, and knowing this could be his only chance, he filled his lungs once more. And again, he submerged himself, reaching his hand out into the abyss. 3 days had passed, and the chance of survival were near zero. This glimmer of light was one diver from a team of 6. They were searching the boat, removing bodies. The diver saw Harrison's hand. He believed it was just one more body. But then, the hand grabbed back. In an unbelievable moment, the diver radioed it in. Harrison Okene's life, against all odds, was saved. This is the real video taken by the headcam of his rescuer.
Alright, just reassure him, pat him on the shoulder. Okay. Alright. Alright, show him the harness. I'm sure he's put a harness on, working at heights. He would have done something like that.
Put your leg.
Open it, open the front. He hasn't drunken much, eh?
No, he's almost finished it.
Oh, he's almost finished it, okay, sorry. Alright, tell him. What's wrong with him?
He says it's cold.
What's cold? The water?
The water's cold. Yeah, he says the water's cold.
There was that oval that you... Right, let's get that hat on his head so we can reduce the CO2, please. Okay, is his umbilical on around his body like we were diving?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, well done. Alright. Okay, Harrison, you mustn't take your hat off, okay? You must just breathe nicely, yeah? Okay. Alright, let's go. You hold your umbilical and you listen to me, okay? Alright, we're going now. Put your head underwater and breathe comfortably, okay? Okay, how's that? Are you alright, Harrison? Are you comfortable?
Following his rescue, Harrison underwent recompression before returning to the surface world. He turned down the offer of a visit to the hospital. He simply wanted to return home. This was now his day off, after all. Now, 11 years later, Harrison Okene has found happiness and greater meaning in his life. He has a wife, 3 children, and a new career. He, unbelievably, works as a diver making repairs on oil and gas facilities. He works up to 175 feet underwater. He said, "The way I think, the way I see life, yes, it's improved my life actually. I know there is a God, and there is a God beside me. I know He has a great purpose for me. I always feel so comfortable and guide myself. I try not to offend anybody, and I try to trust life, because when humans are close to death, that is when they understand we are all one."
Are you in the bell, Harrison? Give me a thumbs up. Good job, my friend. Well done. You're a survivor.
One thing I want to talk to you guys about was if she did jump off the bridge, what are the odds that she's not somewhere all the way out in the ocean by now?
Something we speak about often on this channel is betrayal. This case is another example of a betrayal of the worst kind. Childhood friends, prom dates, some of the most trusted people in a young woman's life, turning on her mindlessly, ruthlessly, for purely selfish reasons. This is the truly tragic case of Sarah Stern. Sarah Stern was born on the 24th of March 1997 in Neptune City, New Jersey, USA. Her parents, Carla and Michael, encouraged her to be creative and active growing up. Mother Carla owned a bookstore and was a member of the American Booksellers Association. She had a real entrepreneurial spirit. Father Michael worked in quality control and project management. Sarah grew to have an artistic flair. She based much of her work around various fandoms, sharing her work on Twitter, and even giving it to the stars of her favourite shows and podcasts in person. The family enjoyed vacations together and were big fans of visiting Disney World. However, sadly in 2013, Carla passed away after a battle with cancer. Not the easiest start in life. But Sarah kept a positive attitude and threw herself into her passions. Now December the 3rd, 2016, Sarah was 19 years old.
Not emergency, actually on the Belmar Bridge, right after heading south in the middle of the bridge, there's a car that's abandoned.
An Uber driver was travelling along Belmar's Shark River at around 2:45 AM when he spotted a car abandoned on the road. The driver had a gut feeling about this relatively normal sight. It was parked at the top of the Route 35 bridge that connected Belmar with Avon by the Sea, New Jersey. He realised something wasn't right and called the police. The 1994 silver Oldsmobile 88 with 4 doors was parked in an unusual fashion. The car's keys were still in the ignition when police arrived, but there was no trace of anyone inside or close to the vehicle. The car was in good condition. It both started and ran smoothly. Police believed there could be 2 main reasons why the car would be there. Firstly, it could be stolen and dumped, or secondly, and more concerning, the driver could be in crisis. When they tracked the vehicle back to 96-year-old Lillian Stern, they learned that her 19-year-old granddaughter, Sarah Stern, frequently used it. Given that Sarah's car was parked on a bridge with a view of the Shark River, police needed to find out where she was immediately. Had she fallen or jumped into the water? Was she in trouble or had she already drowned? Time was working against them. Michael, Sarah's father, admitted to the police that he had been attempting to reach Sarah all night. He had sent her many text messages, but got no response. He was unaware of where she was or what she was doing. Unfortunately, at the time, he was over 1,000 miles away on vacation in Florida. Police needed to quickly build a profile of who Sarah was and what state of mind she was in that day. Liam McAtasney had known Sarah for around 13 years. They met at just 6 years old at Sunday school and had been good friends ever since. At around 4 AM, Liam was visited at home by the police.
You Liam? You got a second? Can I come in and talk to you real quick?
Yeah, no problem, officer.
Is Sarah here by chance?
No.
When was the last time you talked to her?
I was with her today,
What time?
before I went to work.
So it was earlier today?
Yeah.
When was the last time you had any kind of contact at all with her? Turn some light on if you don't mind.
I mean, we went to get food today.
And you went to work at what time?
4:30.
Okay, so you haven't talked to her since 4:30? You have a cell phone you can reach out to her on?
I actually haven't been able to find my cell phone.
Any idea where
I've
it's
been
at?
calling it all day.
What was her mindset last time you talked to her?
I just know she's been trying to get away. She's been telling me she's going to Canada.
Trying to get away, okay. Canada, she been real depressed lately?
Her dad is crazy.
Okay, and then she's dealing with the loss of her mother. Her dad's in Florida right now, right?
Her dad, yeah. He's coming back today, I guess. I don't know what time it is.
Where's the grandma?
Grandma's actually sick.
Where's your grandma at right now? She's not at the house.
She's staying with some family member.
Okay.
Grandma's coming home right now. She's at Sharon's.
Are they going to be able to get into the house? Because I know that
We can get into the
there
house.
isn't a key.
We can get into the house.
Okay.
The house was open earlier. We were already in the house, and I have a key to the house. So,
Okay.
all right, keep looking for your phone to see if there's any messages or anything. All right.
Thank you.
And all these things sitting around here.
Let us know. All right, call us up.
Yeah,
let
I'm
us
sorry
know
about
what
all
time.
this.
You know, that's questionable behavior, man.
If you can maybe reach out to some friends, maybe hit our message on social
I
media.
definitely will.
Start reaching out to somebody, see if anybody's talked to her, or when they talked to her, what her mindset was.
He claimed that Sarah had recently become quite depressed. He painted a picture of a young woman at the end of her tether, someone seeking a new life and a way out. He said that she was packing up her belongings to leave and relocate to Canada. Canada, and Toronto in particular, is somewhere that Sarah had previously visited. She had tweeted about her excitement surrounding the country several times. Liam also claimed that Sarah's father, Michael, was unstable. Police discovered that Sarah was an only child, and that her mother sadly passed away in 2013. Liam used this information to build a picture of Sarah, saying she was likely to attempt to take her own life. This raised concerns because the location of the car suggested that she may have jumped off the bridge into Shark River. If she had done this, she would almost certainly have been carried downriver into the Atlantic Ocean. Police searched Shark River and the surrounding land, but no evidence of her whereabouts was discovered. There was a breakthrough with the discovery of a CCTV camera located under the Route 35 bridge. This could have revealed if Sarah did indeed end up in the water. But frustratingly, and typically in these type of cases, it had not been functional in quite some time. Liam was now interviewed by the police once more. They sought to determine Sarah's exact mental state, and whether this was likely a case of her taking her own life.
What's going on? Just give me what's going on with her. Like, how's she been acting lately? The same, different?
No.
Liam, you've known her since first grade. You said.
Yeah.
Has she been different than normal lately?
Well,
and for how long?
In the past, she has had a tendency to have self-destructive behavior. Over the past few months, she's been telling me, how bad her relationship with her father is, and how she just needs to get out of here.
Why was it bad? What made it bad?
Fighting.
Arguing, fighting?
Arguing, fighting. I've been friends with her since first grade, so we have a pretty good friendship.
Liam was not just a close friend of 13 years. Police also thought that he was one of the last people to see her after they met for lunch on December the 2nd. They went to Taco Bell together that day, ate, and then returned to her place. Sarah was last seen by Liam when he left for work that afternoon, according to him. A surveillance camera owned by Sarah Stern's neighbour captured Liam leaving the home in the late afternoon. This indeed matched what Liam told the police. In order to get to work, he said he left her home in the afternoon. The camera captured Sarah's car backing out of the driveway later that evening at 11:45 p.m. However, unfortunately, the police were not able to see the car's driver. When the car was spotted again on the bridge by the Uber driver, Sarah had vanished.
What's the extent of your relationship? I would say we're pretty close friends. More over the summer than during the winter, but we've still been pretty close. She actually, I'm a lifeguard in Bradley Beach. She was a badge checker, so I saw her pretty much every day over the summer. We're just childhood friends. We can talk about whatever.
Do you know her family?
Yeah, I know some of her family.
You know her dad?
Mm-hmm.
What's her relationship like with her dad?
Not good.
When you say not good, what do you mean?
I can't say that anything's ever gotten violent, but I know that there's a lot of fighting all the time. It's just constant fighting between her and her father.
You haven't told us about the bank.
Yeah.
How come you haven't told us about the bank?
Well, I told him about the bank, but...
Did you go to the bank?
I was with her.
Okay.
That's the way back from Taco Bell.
What did you do at the bank?
No idea, I didn't go in.
You stayed in the car?
Yeah.
What did she tell you she was stopping at the bank for?
Something to do with her money. I don't know. She had found money in Avalon House a few months ago. And, she has a lockbox full of money in there.
A lockbox full of money where?
In Carney Bank.
How do you know?
She's told me.
Whose money did she find?
She said that it must have belonged to her mother. What she thought was her mom left it for her, hid it in the house, so if her dad were to take her money, she would still have money left for her by her mom. That's
how much money?
I couldn't tell you. She said it could be She told me a range. She said it could be from 20 grand to 100 grand. She wasn't sure.
She wasn't sure how much money she found?
Yeah.
How does that make sense to you? That you wouldn't be sure how much money you found?
Well, she told me the condition of the money was pretty bad. Like it was all stuck together. Well, it was all old bills.
Did she give you any of the money?
No. I do know that Robert Santamon is another person that knows about the money besides me, though. Because she had told me that he needed to get something done with his car, and he was asking her for money. But that's the only person I know that would have an idea of how much money it would be.
Some thought that Sarah drove to Shark River, shit herself and fell into the water. Others who knew Sarah better didn't think she would have harmed herself in this way, or that she would have just upped and left for Canada or elsewhere. Most people that knew her wouldn't describe her as melancholy or depressed. They thought of her as happy-go-lucky and full of life. Furthermore, they were aware that she would have brought her cherished dog, Buddy, with her everywhere she went. There's no way that she would have left him home alone with no plans in place to care for him. However, when they searched Sarah's home, Buddy was discovered locked up in his cage. He had no food or water. This surely isn't something Sarah would have allowed to happen. Buddy and Sarah were the best of friends. Despite extensive searches by the police and local residents, Sarah wasn't found, nor was any evidence discovered to point towards if she had ended up in the water. The search for Sarah was eventually abandoned. It was starting to seem as though Sarah's disappearance would never be solved. When Anthony Curry, an amateur filmmaker, got in touch with the police in January 2017, everything they thought they knew about Sarah's disappearance changed in an instant. Though he wasn't certain, he thought he may have known what happened to Sarah. He felt compelled to inform the police about a story that Liam had told him because it was stuck in his mind. It just didn't sit right with him. On Thanksgiving night, around a week before Sarah vanished, Liam revealed a fantasy to Anthony. In this twisted fantasy, he would take the life of a female. He wanted to throttle them and then throw them from a bridge. He informed Anthony that it was merely just a plot for a movie, something he was working on. But Anthony later feared the worst when he learned that Sarah was missing. The parallels were startling. Anthony helped the police with their investigation, and on January the 31st, 2017, he consented to record Liam via a hidden camera. It wasn't difficult to obtain a confession. Liam was disturbingly eager to speak with Anthony. He couldn't wait to explain what had occurred to Sarah in great detail. He spoke about how she passed, how she repeatedly called his name, begging him to stop. Here is that recording.
I pretty much hung her, like, I picked her up and had her just, like, dangling off the ground, and she just herself, and you lose control of said my name, and then that was it. And it took me a half an hour to kill her. I thought I was going to be able to choke her out and have her out in, like, a couple minutes. I choked her out, and then she was just laying there having a seizure or something. So then I got a shirt and I just shoved it down her throat so she wouldn't throw up or anything, and held my finger over her nose and set a timer. That's the only time I had my phone. And it took me like a half an hour after I hit start on the timer.
He revealed to Anthony that he dumped Sarah's body off the bridge with the aid of an acquaintance, Preston Taylor. Preston Taylor was Sarah Stern's prom date just the year before, although they didn't date or have an intimate relationship. Police detained Preston and Liam the next day.
So, how long have you known Liam for?
Sam was shortly after meeting me. Liam was in my algebra class freshman year, so I've known him since then.
I see.
We're nice, pretty good friends. Hanging out ever since.
Just beginning in high school.
Yeah.
Did you go to school with Sarah as well?
Yeah, they were all in the same friend group. That was essentially who I started hanging out with when I went to high school.
Okay. Now, is she your year or is she older or younger than you?
She's the same age.
Same age. You guys graduated together. And how did you meet Sarah? through Liam and James. They were friends with like a whole bunch of Nixon City kids. And that's where I started hanging out.
And did you socialize with Sarah? Did you talk to her on a regular basis, or?
Not on a regular basis. When we hung out, like when everyone all got together, I talked to her. That was really it.
Did you talk to her on the phone? Do you have her phone number? Like, do you have that type of relationship with her where, like, you call her up?
But good. We didn't really speak too much.
Sarah had been close friends with both Liam and Preston. To many, it was unthinkable that they would have been involved in her disappearance in any way. The two beachfront communities of Belmar and Avon-by-the-Sea were thrown into disbelief. As stated earlier, Preston had only taken Sarah to the prom the year before, but according to Liam's taped confession, the motive in this crime was not sexual for either man. The main driving force behind this vile attack was simply money. Liam had been preparing an attack on Sarah for 6 months. Sarah possessed, in Liam's estimation, about $100,000. Whilst Liam was devising a scheme to rob her, Sarah believed that she was spending time with a good friend, confiding in him, and making plans. She had known him since first grade after all. The trust was deep set. He was aware that she had received some money after her mother passed away, but Sarah's finances were in no way comparable to his 6-figure delusions.
The worst part of it is I thought I was walking out 50 grand, 100 grand in my pocket. She had one safe and she took money out and she only had 10 grand. And this money, I don't know if it was Bert or something. It's f***ing old money, terrible quality. I don't even know if I can put any of it in the f***ing bank.
In reality, there was less than $10,000 involved. That was the price of Sarah's life.
It's your life, you might as well make it one. What, are you gonna live some boring life?
Given that they still lacked the vital evidence of Sarah's body, police realised that they would need more than a taped confession to build a strong case for the prosecution. Luckily, they got just what they needed. Preston admitted to his role in the crime and told the police everything. He even walked the police through the house where the attack happened.
When I entered...
When you entered, were the lights on in the house or were they off?
The lights back here were off, but the kitchen and the living room lights were on.
Okay.
And this door was closed. This one I couldn't get open, but I was able to push this one open, enter, and Sarah was slumped in this corner right here.
Okay. And again,
behind this door.
Preston, you said, no, there's these two bifold doors here. The door to the left was in what position?
It was closed.
Okay. And did you try to open it?
I tried to, was only able to get it about that far, and realized that she was behind the door.
Okay. And how about the right door? Were you able to open that fully?
Yes.
Okay. And how was Sarah's body positioned in this bathroom?
She was sitting like this, tucked into the corner and leaning over the toilet.
Okay. And her feet were where?
Sticking out into the room.
Okay. Position when you were taking her out?
She was been facing away, and I had my arms under her shoulders like this.
Okay. So were her feet dragging on the ground?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then I carried her over here. And dragged her over here and kind of sat her under the bushes right here.
These are the bushes that you placed Sarah in?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And
yes.
how did you position her when you brought her out here?
She was just laying on her side like this.
Okay. Which direction was her face?
Facing outward.
Okay.
And with her feet down here and her head up here.
Okay. So her head was up here and her face was facing Detective Catalana?
Yeah.
Okay. And what type of position was she in? Was she laying on her side? Was she laying flat? Was she laying on her stomach with her head turned?
She was laying on her left side. Two of us hopped the fence right here again, and we made our way up to the house. Right under these bushes here, we pulled her out, and he picked her up to start dragging her. I grabbed her legs and got her over to the fence. Liam dragged her over to the car and sat her in the passenger seat while I was putting the safe in my car.
Okay. And did you see him dragging her?
Yeah.
If somebody were driving down the road and looking into that car, what would they see?
They would have seen Liam driving a car and Sarah assuming that she was asleep in the passenger seat.
Okay, and you traveled to which bridge?
The 35 bridge to Belmar going southbound.
You were saying Liam had her...
Liam had her by the shoulders and hoisted her up onto the railing, and then I pushed her feet over so that she was going over the rest of the way. As she went over, immediately after, her body was up and over the rail. As we were running back to my car, the black Mercury Mystique, we heard a loud metallic bang, and that was all.
Okay. Did you have any conversation with Liam about that noise that you heard?
No.
Liam now remained silent and would not respond to any of the police's questions. Perhaps he realised that bragging about what he had done wasn't working in his favour. Preston, however, admitted to dumping Sarah's body over the Route 35 bridge. He admitted to robbery, planning the robbery, tampering with physical evidence, and 2 counts of obstructing an investigation. Preston agreed to give testimony against his friend Liam. He named Liam as the mastermind behind the plot to take out Sarah. Liam was charged with murder, felony murder, robbery, conspiring to commit robbery, delaying arrest, tampering with evidence, and disturbing human remains. He entered a not guilty plea. At Liam's trial, Sarah's body had still not been located, but the evidence against him was compelling. The recorded confession allowed Liam to tell the story of the murder itself, the reason for it, and its consequences, all whilst the jury watched on.
It's good, money. What's happening, bro? How you doing? How you doing? You want a cigarette?
Nah, I'm good. I quit them.
Okay.
I was smoking a lot of cigarettes while I was tripping.
Really?
Yeah. I tripped for like 2 months straight.
What were you doing?
Sitting around.
What you been up to?
Hiding from the cops.
What happened?
Dude, you can't blame me for doing this, right? I gotta feel you up real quick, alright?
You're good.
No disrespect.
I'll show you.
No disrespect, okay?
Nothing.
Yeah, I got the FBI on my ass, dude. Alright, so I'm hanging out with her. She has... We went to the bank. She took some money out, not all of her money. We're counting it out, and then she goes to walk out the front door. I choke her out, drag her. I choke her out, drag her into the back, put her in a bathroom, and then I had to go straight to work. So Preston came over, took the body, put it in the bushes. So I have to leave. I dropped my phone at Sarah's house. My phone was at Sarah's house.
Wait, you left your phone?
Yeah, I lost it and I couldn't find it. I had to go to work. I had timed everything out so that...
Why did you take your phone? You should have left it in your fucking pocket.
Dude.
What were you doing?
Strangling someone? I couldn't find it, dude. It ended up being out in the driveway. And then I was at work. I had a full night of work, except I left work a couple times, which looks sketchy. I look for my phone though, which is a reasonable thing to do.
Yeah, you gotta look for your phone. Yeah, you can't.
Which is kind of me losing my phone was kind of a good thing, because the cops are like, oh, he's hanging out with her, he lost his phone, he's going back and forth between his house looking for it. And then I get off work that night, go straight over. Preston and I go over to her house, take her safe. I had planned Sarah's situation for me to be interrogated by cops. That was whole part of my plan, to make me look not guilty.
What did you end up throwing off the bridge?
You didn't hear about it? It was all over the news.
Right, but I didn't know if you went through.
Yeah. And the worst part is, we threw her off the bridge, and the body never showed up.
It's probably frozen.
It's probably all the way out in the ocean.
And it's frozen, so she's not coming up anytime soon. Everybody's probably at the bottom of the ocean, or she got eaten by a shark or something.
Yeah.
Bro, this is like a movie, bro.
And then Preston and I had these walkie-talkies to communicate with. We just used them again. And then Preston comes over the bridge, goes around, makes a U-turn, comes up behind me. The two of us throw the body over, and then we're out.
Bro, it was good seeing you, bro.
Yeah.
When I come back down, let's fucking do something. It's listening. Look at me. Be safe, alright?
Yeah.
Don't do any fucking stupid.
Listen, I'm not gonna let Preston do anything dumb. I did something really dumb, and I planned it out for half a year. I have patience. I got it.
It's good talking to you, bro.
Good talking.
Take it easy, bro. Safe travels, alright?
You too.
You got everything?
Yeah.
Alright, peace out.
His propensity to brag pretty much sealed his fate. Additionally, they heard from Preston, who told the court his story.
Was there a point in time in 2016 where you learned something about Sarah Stern and her coming into something?
Yeah, I learned that she had found a shoebox full of money at her house in Avon.
Did you ask any questions about that money when you first learned about it?
I asked how much it was, and I was told that it was in the range of about $100,000.
After first learning about that box of money or that money, $100,000, whatever it was, did that money ever come up on previous or prior occasions in the future?
It did.
Okay. And how did that happen? What types of conversations did you have about it?
Well, at first we started discussing the fact that it was a lot of money and what we would do if we had that type of money. And then the conversation evolved into, well, what if we did have that type of money, specifically her money? And that was when the idea to rob her came about.
Okay. Now, the first time he told you about Sarah's money, where were you?
We're at our house, 11 Holly Street.
When was the next specific conversation where that money was brought up?
At Clancy's Tavern, where I worked.
Okay.
I was, it was towards the end of a shift, things were slowing down. Liam came in with another friend, Sean McMahon and Billy McAvoy, and he brought up the money, passed the comment that it was the type of money that somebody would kill for.
Liam claimed that Anthony's tape of him speaking was him simply talking about a movie's plot, something he was sharing with Anthony because he was a filmmaker. He also asserted that Preston was just a liar, and that he was in fact innocent. But his lies didn't work. Liam was given a life sentence without parole after being found guilty on each of his 7 charges. For the desecration of Sarah's remains, he received an additional 10-year sentence. As the judge noted in court, Preston did everything but wrap his hands around Sarah's neck, even though he did not personally murder her. He was fully aware of the situation put forward by Liam, but decided willingly to betray his prom date. He could have put a stop to it at any time, gone to the police, intervened personally, warned Sarah, but he chose money over human life. However, Preston Taylor, in contrast to Liam, apparently expressed regret for his actions, saying, "There's so many things about this scenario I wish I could take back and make right. I should have known better and done something to stop this, and I wish more than anything I had. I'm sorry." Preston Taylor was sentenced to a prison term of 20 years. Father Michael left the court as Preston spoke. Preston's words didn't change what he had done. He simply wasn't interested in hearing any justifications, defences or regrets. None of this would bring Sarah back. Michael remarked, "I was devastated and numb from shock the day I learned from detectives Sarah was murdered. I've had horrific dreams and nightmares. The horrid act of what happened to her body haunts me every day. I will never be able to hug Sarah again. Sarah has never been found, and in reality, she never will be. Sadly lost at sea." Thank you so much for watching. I'm uploading daily true crime and dark content here on this channel, so make sure that you're subscribed, hit like on the video, and also drop a comment so you get shown more of my stuff. Please do be careful out there, and I'll see you